Hi, and welcome to episode number 12 of the Multi-Cloud Expedition. We are excited to be here in Barcelona, and joining me today are two subject matter experts in a topic we're going to be covering. We've got Prashanth. Prashanth, do you want to do a quick intro?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, first of all, it's great to be here at Explore Barcelona. So I'm Prashanth Shenoy. I have the pleasure of running product and technical marketing at VMware here for the Cloud Infrastructure Business Group.
And Justin?
Hi, I'm Justin Murray. I work in technical marketing for Prashanth, and I've been working on GPUs for quite a number of years now.
Yeah. And this has been a fantastic conference here in Europe. It's great to see the energy, see all the excitement, as well as the announcements. And that's one of the things we're going to dig into today, is to go through those announcements. Before we do, we always start with kind of the level set for the audience on the multi-cloud, right? What does the multi-cloud mean? And what we see and what I hear here, just talking to customers today, yesterday, is they very much are in this cloud chaos, right? Mm-hmm. Where they've got infrastructure that's on-prem, they've got infrastructure that's in a hyperscaler, then they've got infrastructure out to the edge, and they're trying to figure out how do we optimize that infrastructure, right, in order to get to the business outcomes we're looking for. And it's not easy because each of those different silos brings with it development processes, brings with it operational security, you name it, right? This is definitely something that AI is going to fix at some point, right?
Yeah.
Or we hope.
Yeah,
perhaps
that's the whole point now.
It'll simplify it all. So multi-cloud, everything from on-prem out through the edge. And we can jump to the next slide. Kind of the journey slide for what we see from customers is cloud first was very popular. And now, you know what I kind of think of is that cloud first was this kind of emotional response, right? As opposed to, and well, maybe we could talk about this, the tactical response, but it was an emotional, the cloud will solve everything. And it certainly had a lot of great capabilities. It still does, but with those come complexity, right? And so there's got to be ways to reduce that complexity. So that the whole goal of this program very much is to look at some of those different multi-cloud challenges. Now we'll be hearing a little bit about how AI actually is becoming available in multiple clouds. So before we get to that, though, Prashanth, we had some big announcements that we made in Vegas. And in Vegas, we really unveiled what was a private AI architecture, right? Architectural approach. Justin, keep me honest here.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So for the audience that missed that, bring them up to speed a little bit on what did we announce? How do we get started? Kind of a approach.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
and we can put up the visual for that private AI.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, see, the world of AI has been there since, I think, computers were invented, right? Like AI is nothing new in the industry. It's been used by data scientists for solving very specific issues, technical issues or business problem issues, right? Like predictive analytics, natural language processing, image recognition, all of that stuff. But what happened, I think, over the last few years is there's one critical thing that has changed. I feel a lot of organizations now have a lot of data at their disposal. And data is like the new crude oil, if you will, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a ton of customer insights that they can get to provide new customer services, to increase operational efficiency, or do better code development, etc. So the concept of generative AI, of using really large language models and using data that is proprietary to our customers and providing new business outcomes is what caused that uptake in Gen AI. Mm-hmm. And for us, when we started talking to the customers, one of the repeated things that we kept hearing is they really wanted to make sure the privacy aspect of this data is very critical for them because it's their own proprietary data. It's their intellectual property. What about the data access for that data, right? Who gets access to that? If the large language model that's open and proprietary is run and used by other folks, right? Like, how do I have complete control of my own data? Mm-hmm. Those were the kind of things happen. So private AI is a market category, I would say, that the industry has, and VMware truly wants to have a very clear point of view there, which is the architectural approach. And as Justin says, it's like, we want to make life a lot easier and simpler for data scientists, right? Mm-hmm. They shouldn't be worried about the entire infrastructure stack that helps them to create applications and use cases for generative AI, right? Mm-hmm. So they should focus more on that. And that's where the private AI of having an architectural approach that takes all of the business gains that you get from Gen AI, but balances it with the compliance and privacy needs of organization is what private AI is all about. And at Explore Vegas, we announced that point of view there, talked about some of the challenges that we see with our customers, not just from privacy, but cost, compliance, security, performance requirements, and unveiled our VMware Private AI Foundation with NVIDIA as our first platform that truly provides a curated, integrated product that customers can use to run their LLM models on their own private data in their on-premise environment or wherever the data resides. So that was one of the key announcements that we did.
And if I can interrupt for 1 minute, and it's important to note, right, that this didn't come out of the blue, meaning like VMware didn't just think this up in the box. You mentioned it a little bit, which is this was really and as an industry approach, and really what we heard directly from customers. Customers saying, as you said, we've got all this data, right? A lot of it on-prem, a lot of it, huge vast of it, may not ever make it to the cloud for certain reasons. So then how do we take advantage of the new generative AI capabilities while also maintaining privacy? And so this is, although, we kind of put that architectural approach to it, right? We announced it. By all means, the customer is who's been telling this to us, as well as to NVIDIA and to everybody else, how important it is, and even to really unlock that innovation, right?
Absolutely.
That's the other thing. We said, what's holding folks up from this? And they said, privacy.
Privacy, absolutely. Yeah, and I think, frankly, Thanksgiving of last year or the year before that, when ChatGPT just exploded and came onto the market, was what created that renewed interest. But that was really consumer oriented, right? Like people like you and me, and trying to figure out, like, asking questions and getting simple answers using NLP. And now enterprise organizations started looking at that and like, hey, how can I leverage that for my enterprise proprietary data and run Gen AI applications for that? Was another renewed interest. The number of inbound interest that we got was tremendous, that we had to really look back.
ChatGPT got those wheels turning in the customer's heads, right?
And very simply put, people want a private version of that. They want a similar functionality, but dealing with their own private data inside their walls. And so security and privacy are of prime concern about this data. And they want to be able to replicate that functionality. And this is a culmination of 10 years of work with NVIDIA. It's not new in the sense that we've been with NVIDIA virtualizing GPUs for 10 years. So this is the final moment for this. This has come true,
we would call this a new workload, if you will, running on vSphere and VMware Cloud Foundation, working very closely with NVIDIA GPUs, right? So that's what is exciting and interesting.
Let's pop up the architecture picture from that announcement, which really talks about NVIDIA, and maybe, Justin, if you want, you can kind of walk us through exactly, the summary of this one.
As you can see, it's got a couple of layers in it. The green layer on top is NVIDIA's data science platforms and tools, and these are very sophisticated for large language models. You can fine-tune your large language model here. You can accelerate here with the virtual GPU drivers. Underneath that is the blue layer, which is, I think of it that as the VMware layer. And we've got lots of innovations here. We've got deep learning VMs. We've got vector databases, which are the hot topic in large language models at the moment. The idea being that you complement your large language model with a database so as it can look up the database if it doesn't know the answer to your question. That's called retrieval augmented generation. That's a huge topic of interest here at the show among our customers. And what's a big surprise for me is that customers are into this already. They're beginning to do this. And on the right hand side, you can see our really advanced performance things we use in our performance benchmarks that we do all the time on this. NVLink and NVSwitch are hardware devices that allow you to get the best out of multiple GPUs. So we're up there with the high-end systems now. We're doing 8 GPUs in a box, 8 GPUs in one VM, even 16 if you can do that. And we're doing GPU Direct RDMA, which is a networking technology that allows you to put a whole cluster of machines together and create a large system if you want to do distributed training, for example. So this is VMware really showing up to the table of serious large language model working and having the exact infrastructure to do it now. So
Yeah.
this is very exciting for our customers. I've had meeting after meeting with customers here talking about these subjects, and they're fired up about it. They want to do this.
Yeah, and the key part of this is it's a curated, validated, tested with a reference architecture, right? Because every customer is looking at us to say, how do we get started, right?
Right.
Like, and
Yeah.
they have so many options. The choice is pretty big, right? Like choice of LLM models, choice of GPUs, choice of hardware OEM partners to build, choice of ML orchestration and frameworks that they need to use. So we really spend a lot of time with our ecosystem partners and with NVIDIA to create this tested, curated, validated product with the reference architecture that customers can go and start running it out of the box, right? With
Right.
8 GPUs or 16 GPUs, with the performance benchmark and testing that we have done for even small large language models, right? Because
Right.
this need not necessarily be used for training, which requires really large language data, but for inferencing in your private data center environment, right? Using your own proprietary data.
And there's a real VMware point of view here, which is you don't need to use 6,000 GPUs
Yeah.
to train a model from scratch on everything in Wikipedia or everything in the Library of Congress. We're not asking you to do that as a starting step. You may get there in the future, but as a starting step, we're asking you to take one of these models on the top layer there, Falcon from TII, Llama 2 from Meta, Facebook, and these have been pre-trained for you.
Yeah.
They're already frozen in time, pre-trained 6 months ago. And we're saying to you, bring that down into your enterprise or into your GPU environment and fine-tune it or prompt tune it or
Yeah.
augment it with a database, a vector database. And that's 2 GPUs to do that. That's not a
That's
big
amazing.
deal.
Yeah.
That's your starting step. So that's our point of view. Get started there,
Yeah, okay.
either with augmented or with fine-tuning, and that will get you business value much quicker. That's the sort of first introduction to this for many customers.
So
Yeah.
kind of we were walking the audience through this, right? And
Yeah.
so we started out with that announcement in Vegas around industry is looking at this, customers are looking at this. So it begins with that number one, privacy and security.
Yeah.
And then the architecture, right?
Yeah.
And then from the architecture, we went into not only do we have an architecture, open reference architecture, which we'll post the show link in, but then now we've got the partners. We're bringing the partners in.
Yeah.
So this is, again, where customers are saying, this is a lot of complicated technology to
Yeah.
work together, to make it work together. And in reality, they shouldn't have to worry too much about the technology. They should just worry about this is the outcome that I want to
Yeah.
drive the business result, right?
What's
Don't
the business outcome?
Yeah, don't bother me about like, all the dirty details. VMware helped me just get that AI capability into my organization so that I can then use it to get to this business outcome. To get
Yeah.
that is natural language processing of and on top of their data for better customer service. Yeah, you name it. We'll talk about some of those use cases in a minute.
Yeah. I think there are quite a few use cases here, right? And in fact, it started off even within our own organization at the VMware AI Labs, that and they have been working towards, say, what can we do to make our own operational process better and simpler using AI? What can we do to help our software engineers develop code in a faster, more efficient way, right? So some of the things that we did working with our ecosystem partners like Hugging Face was to use their star coder back then, and now we have released their enterprise version safe coder, and use it with our VMware engineers working on vSphere and vCenter to help them do better coding or code augmentation, right? And we tested it out with what, like 100 engineers or something, and 500 engineers,
yeah.
and then when we asked them, would you use it? I think more than 90% of them wanted to use it.
Yeah, the response was amazing.
It's crazy.
This is
You don't get
real code.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't get 90% of engineers to agree with anything.
Right. Yes.
And this was pretty interesting for us to say, hey, there is true value, which is one of the things that we also discuss with our customers. Is AI going to replace or completely take over the job? In fact, it's a true augmentation and complementary nature of how you can do your job better. And software development is one big use case. Some of us in marketing here, developing product marketing content and collateral, leveraging the data that we already have is another use case. Understanding legal documentation and frameworks and helping figure out the right legal language to use is another use case. obviously a lot of customer experience and support, right? Like using chatbots, etc.
Yep.
So there are plenty of use cases, some of which are horizontal across all industry, and some of which are very industry specific, I think.
And some of these play very well to customers. The code generation one does. The idea of taking all of your documentation, tokenizing it, or creating embeddings out of it and putting that in the database, and then having the large language model use that to answer a support question or to answer a sales question. That's going to be prevalent in every business. Every business can use that. So that's a very hot application as well as a third use case.
Yeah. And we have started to build it in our own products too, right? Like the co-pilots that we use, we call it the intelligent assist, right? So where our own practitioners of our product, if they want to understand a workflow or get a recommendation on how to use the product, can use the intelligent assist to do that. And that's one of the primary use cases we are seeing
People
in the
have
market.
asked us even, how are you using this to predict operations events, to predict that there's going to be a failing on this machine in an hour's time? Are your tools being built with generative AI? They're asking us. And indeed, yes, we have Tanzu Intelligence to do that kind of thing, to predict faults and take action on them before they occur. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, the amount of, and I think we might have just had a little glitch there, but that's actually part of the reason why this is live.
Yeah, it's live.
Right?
Yeah,
this is live.
happens.
This is not recorded, and this is this is not AI. This is real people talking
about
working
AI.
through some technical difficulties and enjoying ourselves at what is a great VMware Explore conference. So, okay, great catch up of everything kind of from Vegas, right? Bringing us to today, roughly. And we did actually, Justin was on a prior episode, and we talked about it in the Multi-Cloud Expedition 10. So if people want more details, they can go there. We've got web pages. We'll put all that in the show notes for people to go. Now, fast forward to yesterday. Today is Wednesday. Yesterday, Tuesday. We had some big announcements, beginning with Intel. So tell us what was going on, what happened with Intel, what did we announce, and how does it fit into everything we've been talking about?
Yeah, I think one of the things that both Justin and I were talking about is VMware by ourselves won't be able to drive this private AI category, right? So, and also with NVIDIA. So this truly requires a very broad ecosystem of our partners working together, from OEM providers to AI software providers to framework providers to LLM models, etc. So, and we've had this tremendous partnership with Intel over last couple of decades, right?
Yeah,
So
25 years in running, right? Since we were founded.
Yeah, and now we are expanding that partnership mainly in the private AI space with VMware Private AI with Intel. And that's really leveraging their AI software kit and the Intel 4th generation Xeon processors, CPUs, and their Max GPUs with our VMware Cloud Foundation for running Gen AI applications, right? So, and it's important to understand that the CPUs can also be used for inferencing, right? It's not necessarily only the GPUs that is required. And we've got some really good results with benchmark and performance testing with the Intel Xeon CPUs. So that's one of the things that we announced today.
The Sapphire Rapids CPU, the latest CPU, the 4338 48 machine, has built-in acceleration for these large language models or AI in general, and it's called AMX. The M in there is matrix, from matrix multiplication, which is the key thing that goes on inside a large language model. Is you take your table of weights and multiply it by your table of inputs, and you do that millions of times over. So if you accelerate that, you accelerate everything. And Intel has done that, and so the AMX-based machines now, Sapphire Rapids, they're 3 times or 4 times the previous generation in terms of running large language models, or NLP, as you said,
too,
and also for image classification. They're tremendously fast. So you could fine-tune with these Sapphire Rapids CPUs now. You could do prompt tuning, which is the techniques that we're talking about. Or you could do inference, as Prashanth has mentioned, with these devices, and not lose any performance, essentially. And we're writing articles ourselves about that very subject. What if you can't get hold of a GPU for whatever reason? Then if you've got Sapphire Rapids, you've got almost as much power there to do the work.
So the instruction set, then I guess the customer has to know what calculations are being done, and
No.
then, or do they? Or, yeah.
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
These chips are very smart.
Yeah.
The Sapphire Rapids device can switch between modes automatically when it sees what the model is trying to do. So if the model is doing all of a sudden a lot of matrix multiplication, it's going to switch into AMX mode, which is matrix acceleration mode. If it goes into something else, which is less intensive, it's going to switch back to the previous mode. AVX mode is what that's called.
Okay.
And the hardware now is capable of at least 3 different types of word size. Int8 is the most efficient for inference. BF16 is another very popular word size that's being used in models. And then there's floating point 32, which everybody starts with because it's the most accurate, but it's the most consuming of power.
Yeah.
Well, the Intel devices now can handle all of those. BF16 is a relatively new one, and they show benchmarks that say 4 to 5 times faster with BF16 and the latest generation of hardware. So there's tremendous power coming now at you in Sapphire Rapids.
Yeah.
And if we jump to the architecture slide, then we can kind of look at the similarities, right? Because again, we're trying to. These are. If I'm an audience member, I'm hearing a lot of stuff, right? I'm hearing Intel, I'm hearing NVIDIA, I'm hearing Hugging Face, I'm hearing large language models.
Right.
So we want to make sure that yes, we are. We've got this architectural approach. And what's important about that architectural approach is that it works with what customers have and also what they want to use. So maybe, talk us through how this with Intel, where Intel fits in.
This is a very similar picture in many ways. NVIDIA's got libraries and tools. Intel has got a lot of libraries and tools. There's the one API from Intel, which is accelerated for deep neural networks, for example. It's got tools. It's got its own repository of models that it's optimized for their hardware. And you can get hold of that. That's called a model zoo. You can get hold of models from there that are like Llama or Falcon that we talked about before. You can see the models across the top there. But what really strikes me as different about this Intel architecture is they've taken care of that world that is not generative AI as well. They've taken care of classical predictive analytics, which is using models like XGBoost. XGBoost is hugely popular among customers that want to deal with tabular structured data as opposed to unstructured document data. So Intel has covered both worlds there, and XGBoost runs absolutely fine on CPUs. It always has. So their structures, their architectures takes that into account, as well as the generative AI, more advanced unstructured data. That's one key difference there. But you're finding the same thing. I described the hardware acceleration. That's key to all that. But there's a layering here in the architecture, just like there is with the NVIDIA one.
And this is really, demonstrating VMware to say we very much understand and have these long working relationships with Intel, right? Also with NVIDIA. And our customer base has a tremendous amount of these assets at their disposal. So the combination of those two, as well as, they've got more demand, wanting to take those capabilities and make them available for, their developers, their data scientists and everything else. And this brings it together, giving a lot of guidance around that area.
Yeah, and these are reference architectures also, right? Because there are so many options and tools and choices. Customers want to know, how do I get started for my use case? And we have a reference architecture for that too. And we didn't quite mention, but we have worked with our OEM partners too, right? Whether it's Dell, Lenovo, or HPE, where they can certify their appliances to run our Private AI Foundation model, right? Whether it's with Intel or whether it's with NVIDIA. So that's pretty critical too, because most of these go through OEM partners, and they are the ones having appliances to run these Gen AI applications in on-premise for their private cloud environments.
I was going to say, on the open source side, then it's very much having that ecosystem that's very big, but also we are coming in with some very prescriptive measures to help customers get started more quickly.
And there's a whole bunch of security at the VMware level: TPM, virtual TPM, trusted platform, secure boot, encryption. Even the H100 GPU now has encryption on it. So people are thinking about these concerns to do with security and privacy down to the hardware level now. And so we're getting a lot of help from the hardware there but we're providing our own software on top of that to do this.
Fantastic. All right. Well, let's jump to the next one, which is Private AI, right? VMware Private AI with IBM. So, Prashanth, fill us in on what's going on there. IBM's been around for obviously forever, and Watson,
and
right?
we've had a great partnership with IBM too, right? So they're one of our cloud service providers too, providing managed services on top of VMware Cloud Foundation. But from a Gen AI perspective, they have watsonx, right, and runs on IBM Cloud, where they can use Gen AI LLM models. So we have taken watsonx and now put it on VMware Cloud Foundation, and they can run the same thing now for their proprietary data on their on-premise private cloud environment. So pretty much the same concept. So you can see kind of a theme here going on, right? It's all about privacy for their proprietary data that they want to use in their own secure environment. And we provide that reference architecture, this curated platform for our customers to run their proprietary data using VMware Cloud Foundation with our ecosystem partners and their large language models and their software. In this case, it happens to be watsonx.
Yeah. Privacy always still number one, right? I mean, privacy, that's synonymous really with security, right? Those two components are super important. But then I think of the next layer down is that choice, right?
Yeah.
It's that choice and flexibility for them to still customers achieve those privacy and security needs, but with the choice of hardware, the choice of their large language models that they need in order to deliver whatever it is that they're trying to do there.
Yeah, the Watson whole catalog is a very impressive set of tools. There's a prompt studio to help you do prompt tuning. There's a tuning studio to help you. If you feed it your data, it will say, "I have the model for you." It will pre-authorize the model for you and say, "Here's the right model to choose based on that data that you've just given me," which is amazing help for a data scientist. I mean, it's a big decision to make to choose a model, and then it will train it for you and optimize for inference as you demand. So, you know, it's a very sophisticated environment, watsonx. And now you will see in a minute that it runs on top of OpenShift. This shows the open-mindedness of VMware to run on another vendor's Kubernetes, essentially. That's supported. We see
on VMware Cloud
OpenShift there all the time.
As part of our ecosystem, right?
Yes.
To deliver that AI solution.
Yes.
Yeah. It's it's very interesting because also this enters, right? AI now enters. We knew it was bound to happen, but the multi-cloud world, because watsonx is all right up in the cloud for the most part, and now this really brings those same capabilities down. Again, multi-cloud is not necessarily how we would all want to architect things, but it's just the way it is because there's capabilities in cloud providers that provide real value, and you'll want to access that. But you got complexity on top of there,
I've
too.
spoken to a whole bunch of our cloud partners here at the show that want to give GPUs as a service to their end customers.
Interesting.
They want to be the major cloud that a government institution uses for their GPUs or their customers would use, and they want multi-tenancy from us. They want VMware Cloud Director to do that. You know, so we have very strong offerings here in the multi-cloud area as well.
Really, it's imperative, I think, for Gen AI, right? Because it's all about where the data is processed, consumed, and our customers have their data everywhere, right? Not just in the private cloud. So having an architecture, a foundational platform that can work in a multi-cloud environment becomes very, very crucial for them. And the GPU as a services, I think, makes business sense because there's huge scarcity of GPUs right now, right? So providing
you might want to rent a GPU instead of buying it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you charge a pretty penny for that, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I had a customer this morning where power is very much available. They're an Icelandic company, so power is almost free there, and they want to provide GPUs as a service to everybody else, you know, at low cost, low energy consumption, and very important here, low ESG, low emissions, you know,
carbon footprint.
Because this is a notorious workload for occupying as much power as you could give it. But if you're in a country where electricity is generated very, very cheaply and easily, then ideal match there.
Yeah. The progression and the way that we've built out these partnerships definitely, in my opinion, shows how VMware is very much leading this space and being very responsive to the needs of the customer, both in, hey, we need the technical capabilities, but we also need that to be supported by our number one concern, privacy and security. So
Yeah.
you talked a little bit about data, right? Or not a little bit. We talked a lot about data because
Yeah.
data is at the center of that privacy. So it's probably a good way to kind of round things out. We can jump to the next slide, which is we talked about all this different technology. Oh, sorry, we'll go one more slide and talk about some of those use cases. We alluded to it a little bit, but I think that goes back to the wheels were turning when ChatGPT came out,
Yeah.
saying now we've got a new interface to what is a large language model. Now we can ask it questions, and it provides somewhat human responses.
Yeah.
So that's when people say, well, what if they could do that in then name your code generation? You talked about a little
Yeah.
bit internally.
Yeah.
The other one we're hearing a lot about is contact center resolution. So
Yeah.
that's another one. But if you guys want to mention any of these or customers and what they're thinking.
Yeah, a lot of customers want to do that contact center thing. They want to have somebody on the end of the phone line supporting their customer, and they want to summarize a whole ton of documents to do with vSphere 8, for example, into one short paragraph that I can read quickly while I'm on the phone and answer the customer's question. And that those documents might not be to hand in any sense. So we're asking the large language model to get me the answer quickly here, please. That's going to be useful in support, in sales, in marketing.
Sure.
It's going to be useful to every company. Code generation, we're in love with it because we're a coding company.
Yeah.
Right? We live and die on our code. So, and when I heard engineers say, this stuff is really writing very high quality code, and I knew these engineers were seasoned people, then I knew then that it got its testing. It's quality stuff. It's really producing the goods. If it hadn't been good quality code, they'd have said so. So that's a classic use case. We have on here classical machine learning. That's where I come from, which was before ChatGPT appeared. We were using machine learning to predict business conditions ahead of time. To say, what will my sales be in 3 months based on my past 5 years history? And that's still very much a relevant use case.
Yeah.
So, I mean, being able to unlock these for customers,
Yeah.
definitely.
And we've been using some of these, right, as Justin was mentioning, like even for ransomware and disaster. Like things like ransomware are hiding in our customers' networks, in the workloads, etc. So using ML-type behavioral analysis to identify this ransomware even before encryption happens is another huge use case that we've seen. And this is nothing to do with generative AI, but just using predictive modeling and machine learning to understand how we can help customers make their environment a lot safer and recover faster from threats. It's another use case that we generally see and that we apply machine learning techniques for too.
And I'll jump in with another one here. There's a key problem with this large language model thing in that they're large, and how often do you retrain them? If you have to retrain your model every day, that's a lot of work.
Right.
So now techniques like this connecting to a database idea is coming into play, where it's easy to update a database with new stuff. You do that all the time. And you can make the data bang up to date, right up to date, data from an hour ago. So the model is now being fed with data that's contemporary. And when the model comes back and says, I have the answer for you, and here's the document I got it from, it's explaining how it made its decision. It's saying, here is the document that's already around and published that I can quote as a citation and say, that's how I got to this decision. That explainability or interpretability aspect is extremely important for regulated industries. And so they love that being able to explain how the model got its answer.
Well, I'm sure, from our audience perspective, I bet the ideas are churning in terms of, what kind of use cases they can put to work. Last time we did the episode, I think after that, your phone was ringing off the hook with customers interested. Tell me more? How can I get
huge interest.
This type of technical capability? Prashanth, now probably your phone will be ringing off the hook
Yeah,
too.
I've silenced it.
With customers who want to, take advantage of this and learn how to get started. With that, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. We can kind of wrap things up here. All right. Well, actually, this is the episodes 1 through 11. So this is a recap of that. But before we do the recap of the other multi-cloud expedition episodes, Prashanth, do you want to kind of walk us through, because you've done this so well beforehand, going back, and I was kind of trying to do this along the way, but how we started from the industry, right?
Yeah.
All the way down to these latest announcements. Like, put it together for our customer, our audience.
Yeah. So in general, private AI is going to be a journey for our customers and for our vendors and our ecosystem partners, right? This industry is moving at a really, really rapid pace. And we haven't even talked about regulations, for example, right?
Yeah.
Where governments are now really interested in making sure it's used in a safe and secure manner, right? Whether it's for consumers or whether it's for enterprises. So private AI is an emerging industry and market category. VMware, I think, since its inception, has been in the business of abstracting complexity from our customers' environment. And now we are using it for a purpose like Gen AI, right? So that's so that data scientists can do their jobs better and customers can run new business outcomes using their own proprietary data in a safe and secure manner. VMware by ourselves cannot do this, right? So that's why we have a really strong ecosystem of partners where we build curated platforms and foundations to help customers run LLM models and Gen AI applications. And we are going to make sure it's simple, easy, and effective for them to deploy it wherever their data resides in a secure manner. So it's going to be an exciting space for us. And this is just the beginning, and we're going to learn along the way. So I'm looking forward to seeing our customer response and getting a lot of feedback and then continuously improving the product over time.
Well, for everyone that tuned in today, we'll make sure to put links to the not only the press releases, but then the reference architecture, as well as where you can get started at VMware. I want to very much thank Justin. Thank you very much. And Prashanth, you guys are both super busy here talking with customers and meeting with partners. So appreciate your time here. Thank you to the audience for tuning in. And you can go ahead and follow VMware on LinkedIn. Then you'll be notified when the next multi-cloud expedition comes up. All right. Have a great day.